I used to write for Benicia magazine, and I did some spotlights on Sustainable Solano, so I've been following you that way. And I really wish that we had an organization up here similar, but we've been kind of working along those lines, trying to gather community. I'm located up in Sonoma County in Guerneville on the so-called Russian River, and I live with my husband and 6-year-old twins. As Nicole mentioned, I'm a writer, an herbalist, a holistic health practitioner, and a community organizer. And I started Declaration Sovereign about a year ago with my good friend Anna Grace. Our families were cohabitating in a duplex when we went through our second fire evacuation due to the Kincaid fire in late 2019. And after that, Anna and I would walk down to the river, which is just across the street from us, every morning, and we'd say our prayers and have our talks and check in about current events. And we really were feeling a lot of urgency towards change. I think going through natural disasters has a way of pushing you in that way. So we really wanted to do something, and we decided to bring our activism to our art and our art to our activism. And we created Declaration Sovereign in a zine format. And if you don't know what a zine is, it's kind of a DIY magazine. It has a very long tradition in activist communities. And so it just seemed like a really good format for us. We wanted it to be beautiful and something that people could hold in their hands and thumb through. So we publish this bi-monthly. We have a subscription service, and it's all full color, thick paper, hand bound, and 30 to 36 pages. As Nicole mentioned, full of art, poetry, prose, body and breath practices, plant medicine, permaculture, gardening how-tos, recipes and ferments, and conversations with change makers. And we also have a lot about preparedness and focusing on food and medicine sovereignty in the zine. So the presentation I'm going to give tonight comes from the zine, and it comes from just my own personal experience, having now been through 4 evacuations in the last 3 years, 3 from fire and 1 from flood. I've had fire within a mile of my house on 2 sides in 2 different houses. And we had 4 feet of water in our house last year from the flood. So I have learned quite a lot from going through that about what to do and what not to do, and have gotten better and better at it every time. So my goal tonight is just to spark some inspiration and empower possibilities. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody see this collage? Okay, good. So the title of this course is Evolve Through Crisis, Practical Tools for Surviving and Thriving in Rapidly Changing Times. So I will just name what is in the collage real quick, which is get with your neighbors, get with your friends, and discuss food sovereignty, self-defense, family protection, sharing resources, medical and health sovereignty, bugging out, bugging in, mutual aid and support, ways to take action, spiritual well-being, community resilience, visions for the future, and create it together. We are the ones we are waiting for. So we're going to touch on most of these tonight. And as Nicole said, if there's time at the end, we'll take questions. Okay. So the mission of Declaration Sovereign is to take our power back from outmoded systems and remember who we are as sovereign beings in community and in collaboration with the earth. So where are we now collectively? While the media always focuses on what's divide us, let's choose to focus on what unites us. What's the common ground and what's the invitation in these crazy times? Across the political spectrum, I think many of us can agree it just keeps coming and getting crazier and crazier. And many of us may also agree that we need to become more self-sufficient and prepare for a less certain future. I also want to mention that all the art that is in my presentation is art from our zine. So turn anxiety into action. This is something that I have had to learn how to do through the various evacuations that I've been through and the situations we found ourselves in as a community. Stress response can be useful when it's put to good use. It can be helpful. And I have a lot of peace of mind now knowing that I have a plan, I'm organized, and I can exit quickly with my family if need be. And I didn't always have that. So when there's fear, chaos, and uncertainty in our environment, both locally and globally, it can be challenging to figure out how to respond. Preparedness can be physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Preparing for various outcomes can be empowering. It can put that anxiety to good use, as I said, knowing that we're learning, growing, and becoming more adaptable. And I also want to mention that many places around the globe are used to experiencing constant destabilizing events, and it is perhaps something new to some of us here in the States, but I do believe that it's going to continue. So that resilience and adaptability is key. And the preparedness does not happen all at once. It takes time and it can be really overwhelming. So identifying and prioritizing our particular needs and focusing on one thing at a time is powerful. And that's what I want to plant seeds for tonight. Checking one thing off the list can feel amazing. So where do we begin? We want to begin with identifying concerns. So what kinds of disasters may affect you in your particular area? Fire, flood, earthquake, hurricanes, civil unrest, lockdowns, power outages, etc. When preparing, identify the threats and then prioritize them from least to greatest. So this will be really different depending on whether you live in the city or the country, at sea level or in the mountains, if you live in a dry climate or a wet climate, etc., etc. And this will affect every aspect of your preparation. So for me, because fires are the top threat on my list, when I have been thinking about food sovereignty and having enough food on hand to last my family for a while, I've also had to think about how to make those food rations as lightweight as possible. So I will share more about that later on. Bugging out versus bugging in. These are prepper terms. You may or may not be familiar with them. And I think that prepping has kind of officially been taken out of the sidelines and into the mainstream now. So if you're bugging out, you need to think about what you need to take with you if you must leave your home for an extended period of time in an emergency. And always remember some comfort items in addition to necessities. The first time I evacuated from fire, we had 20 minutes. It was the middle of the night. I swept my entire altar into a bag and grabbed all my kids' stuff, and I did not bring my toothbrush or my clothes, extra socks, underwear, anything like that. So creating a checklist and updating it regularly is really helpful. And then starting to work towards physical preparation of the things on your checklist. If you have to bug in, thinking about what you will need if you must shelter in your home for any length of time without access to services, including the possibility of no access to power or water, and defending your property in case of need. Now, I'd like to go over a few general preparedness tips. This is, again, just a way to kind of get the brain moving and thinking. I just picked 3 aspects from my list to go over here. So for fire, a few important things are creating some defensible space around your home from plants and other buildings, etc. Keeping your go bags ready during fire season. I like to keep spare clothes, sleeping bags, and camping gear in my car. Keeping important papers in one place so they're easy to grab and go. You definitely don't want to be grabbing paperwork from different areas of your house if you don't have much time. I just have a bunch of plastic file folders in a big duffel bag, and that's all my important papers in one place. You may want to create a go bag for medication, supplements, herbal medicines, etc., and we'll talk more about that. Again, keeping trees and debris piles and gasoline cans away from the house. And knowing your escape routes and keeping gas in your car. I can't stress that enough. If there's a storm or what have you, there may be down power lines, there may be trees in the road. And I highly recommend having paper maps. They're kind of a thing of the past, but they're really, really helpful. You can keep them in your glove box. Our children have little camelback backpacks, and they both have maps in there. We're teaching them to read paper maps. In case of earthquake, keeping enough water for your family for at least 3 days, and you want to think a gallon per person per day. Knowing how close you live to fault lines and the last time there was a major earthquake is really helpful, doing a little research. Making sure bookcases and anything that could fall on someone are bolted to the wall. And then learning about the structural integrity of the building that you inhabit and the safest place to be in an earthquake. Power outage. I don't know if y'all had any in Benicia last night, but the winds were whipping and we had some up here in Sonoma County. We're also getting the summer and fall power outages, the PSPS, public safety power shutdowns now. So we kind of have them in all seasons. So having flashlights, lanterns, and headlamps strategically placed around the home, especially one next to the bed in the nightstand drawer or something with charged batteries, and having a store of backup batteries on hand. Purchasing a simple hand cranked AM FM radio. If you know an outage is coming, if it's like a PSPS and you have some notice, you can fill the bathtub with water in case water gets cut off. We keep frozen 1 gallon crystal geyser bottles in our freezer at all times so that we can pop them in the fridge in a power outage and make the refrigeration stay cool for longer. Do your laundry, consume perishables, grind coffee, have your backup power ready, etc. Know what your cooking situation is. So if you have an electric stove, maybe someone in your neighborhood has a gas range, or a cheap propane camping stove can come in handy. Also the old school barbecues with charcoal briquettes. If it's winter and you have electric heat or an electric water heater, make sure you have extra wool blankets and sweaters on hand. Water can be heated over a cooktop and placed in mason jars or large containers and put inside wool socks and placed in the bed. If you purchase a generator, it's important to do a dry run, know how to turn it on, know how to run it, and know what it will power and for how long. Of course, keep fuel on hand. I recommend a dual fuel generator because gasoline depends on electric pumps while propane does not. So if it were a prolonged outage, it's a lot easier to get a hold of propane. And then there's some amazing solar technology out there. We just got some collapsible solar panels. They're quite small and compact, and they have plugs for all various manner of electronic devices, so you can charge that up. And then we will use that to charge our Yeti battery pack, which can also charge our devices. And there's solar cooking options too. I did forget to mention, I'm hoping that you did see the note to bring pen and paper because we'll do an exercise later. But if you're having any questions as I run through this material, please feel free to jot things down. And if we can't get to them later, I will be providing my email address as well. Inner preparation. So inner preparation is really just as important as outer preparation. And it's been important for me to keep coming back to that and remembering, as much as my monkey mind wants to make me think that I need to have all my ducks in a row out here, really, you know, being centered and grounded and calm on the inside is a huge asset. in a disaster situation. And it's a big practice. So each of us, just by being who we are and bringing ourselves to the table, is a treasure trove of resources. So what are your natural assets? And this is something that I love to think about, and it's one of the most beautiful aspects to me of being pushed into having to think about these things, is that it really helps us discover who we are and what we bring to the table. And none of us has all the answers. We're all fumbling and bumbling around, and we all have our natural strengths and our challenges. And in situations like this, it becomes very apparent that we can't do it alone. We really need our communities to, it's like a puzzle or like a Rubik's Cube. Fitting all of our skills together can be so dynamic and exciting and empowering. So a great thing to do is to sit down, take some quiet space, and get yourself calm and centered, and think about your inner resources. What are your skills? What do you like to do? What are you passionate about? What are you good at? And this may range from occupational skills to practical skills to obscure knowledge and gifts. And then you can also create a list of outer resources, which could include things like a generator, a long-range antenna, medical supplies, a 3D printer, garden space, scrap lumber, a sewing machine, etc. Things that you may not usually think of as assets can absolutely become assets in unforeseen circumstances. And then we get to join forces. Our culture breeds isolation, especially in this time of COVID. Creating community is not only a radical act, but may be life-saving. Networking and forming relationships within our local neighborhoods and wider communities creates a web from which we can all work to ensure that our needs and the needs of the people we care about are met in emergencies. And I have this beautiful painting that Anna did called Sovereign Land, Sovereign Beings. And I really do believe that it's going to take all of us coming together across differences in situations where, we can't be hung up on what political sign you have in your front yard when the fire's at your front door. We have to bridge those differences and stand up together. Starling's murmuration consists of a flock moving in sync with one another, engaging in clear, consistent communication, and exhibiting collective liberation and deep trust. Every individual bird focuses on their 7 closest neighbors, and thus manage a larger flock cohesiveness and synchronicity, at times upward of over 1 million birds. That's a quote by Sierra Piquet. And emergent behavior is large-scale, often unpredictable, complex action, resulting from a multiplicity of smaller interactions without any centralized control or leadership. So that's my inspiration, and maybe it can be yours too. I want to talk briefly about 3 types of community networks, and then I'll go more into the first one. Community cells or pods are formed around a common cause or issue. Smaller pods can be linked together to create greater networks. We've been working on this for a couple years in Sonoma County. We started off with 1 pod, and then we've created more pods, and the pods sort of meet regularly as well. Smaller pods are great. You can get a lot more done with less people. And then it keeps everything very decentralized and keeps things from like infighting and all of that. We found that a sweet spot is like 8 to 10 people or families. I also highly, highly recommend Derek Bros. I don't know if anybody here knows about Derek's work, but he talks about freedom cells and the Global Freedom Cell Network. which is in action now, and there's tens of thousands of members of the Freedom Cell Network around the country. Around the world. It's global. So you can go to freedomcells.org and check that out and become a part of it. There are probably people in your local area who are part of it already. And that's also great because you can connect with folks in different states, in different countries. When we've, especially this last season with millions of acres burning in California, people were fleeing the state. So it's great to have out-of-state contacts. Neighborhood networks are also wonderful and are formed by getting together with your immediate neighbors to discuss how to respond to disasters and how to be aware of individual needs. Neighborhood networks can join together within a larger area, and maybe someone in your neighborhood is trained in emergency response. If not, you can actually request a CERT member to come to your neighborhood and do a training specific to your neighborhood. In my neighborhood, Anna actually joined together with a woman in her 70s who's also great at taking the lead in organizing. They printed up flyers and put them in mailboxes. They knocked on doors, and we got together and had a neighborhood meeting. We figured out who in the neighborhood is elderly. There are some people on our street who don't have cell phones, so they don't get NIXL alerts in the case of fire or flood. There are people who have medical equipment. So we all know now whose doors need to be knocked on, who we don't leave the neighborhood without, who has the generators in case we need to charge a cell phone, et cetera, et cetera. And after we activated that network, one of the neighbors in her 70s had a terrible nosebleed that wouldn't stop. And she sent a text out to the network and people came running immediately. So it worked right off the bat. Family networks are another great thing. And that's just about opening conversations with our immediate and extended family members. And maybe it's better to talk about then politics, sharing what our plans are in case of emergency, what we're doing to prepare, what food rations we have set aside, etc. A quote from Derek Brose: "We have a vision of thousands of interlocking autonomous communities comprised of empowered individuals with a variety of unique ideas and expressions of human experience. Communities voluntarily trading and sharing skills without the violence inherent in our current paradigm." That's from Manifesto of the Free Humans, and I think that they have created this now, which is amazing. I would also like to read a brief bit on community cells or pods that Anna wrote for one of our zines. Community cells or pods are groups of 8 to 15 individuals or families within the same general geographic area who are committed to meeting together on a weekly or bi-monthly basis to build a support network and share resources and skills. The idea behind these cells or pods is that our strength lies in our interconnectedness and our ability to help one another become as self-sustaining and independent of the system as possible as we move into societal collapse, starting with the most vulnerable members. Pods are non-hierarchical and centered around mutual aid. Certain members who have areas of expertise, such as herbal medicine, share that information with the pod to support every household with empowering tools to help heal themselves or families. Other areas of focus may include organizing a guerrilla garden project, developing off-grid sustainability skills, putting together a cop watch in your community, establishing a secure emergency communication network, and ensuring every member has adequate supply of emergency water and alternative sources of energy. Your pod decides what topics and skills are priorities depending on your geographical locations, individual needs, and passions. Ideally, more pods branch off from the first pod and continue to grow so that all pods are connected to a larger network, so that when there's a need within the community, word can be sent out through the network to meet the need, and larger community organizing and projects can be collaborated on. You may already be connected with potential like-minded folks who would be willing to commit to a more official structure of meeting regularly and organizing around specific goals. As the structures and systems of the old paradigm are disintegrating, there can be fear. We've been conditioned to look for a government, political leader, philosophy for salvation. We are in the process of remembering that we are the only ones who can vision and create decentralized community care systems that are interdependent, regenerative, reciprocal, empowering, radical, relational, and support all life. We are the ones we have been waiting for. So let's talk about food sovereignty. Doing good on time. Okay. This is another piece from the zine, a quote we found that we loved from the Declaration of Nyaleni, which was 500 delegates from 80 plus countries on the Forum for Food Sovereignty in Selengwe, Mali, 2007. Food sovereignty is the right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agriculture systems. It puts those who produce, distribute, and consume food at the heart of food systems and policies rather than demands of markets and corporations. It defends the interests and inclusions of the next generation. It offers a strategy to resist and dismantle the current corporate trade and food regime. So I know that there are so many people around the world doing this, and Sustainable Solano is one of those groups. I highly recommend, if you're not connected with that already, and maybe many people here are, to find those people in your community who are producing food. We have an interview in one of our zines with a local farm who they produce free food for 80 families in the county, and it's all decentralized. They just have a group of people that show up and pick the food. They have one farmer, his only job is to grow the food. He doesn't know anything else about what happens beyond that. The people come and pick the food, and then they distribute it to their networks. It's really cool and inspiring, and I loved hearing about that model. And I believe Sustainable Solano is doing, I'm probably going to mince the wording, but it sounded like food libraries where someone just was producing extra food in their garden and started putting it out, and it kind of grew from there. So there's just endless exciting possibilities here. And a note on that is the importance of saving seeds and trading seeds. Some of you might know that a seed that was grown locally is adapted to the environment and will produce a higher crop yield. So if you ever move to different terrain, it's great to find local farmers with local seeds. It's great to save your seeds and bring them, but they will take a year to kind of adapt. And I have a seed go box. I think this is for holding floppy disks or something, but it's perfect for seeds. I just bought it online. It's alphabetized, and then I have my individual seed envelopes in here. I have seed envelopes for seeds that I've grown myself, and then some are in plastic bags, and then seeds that I've purchased. So this is always sitting in my front hallway in fire season. The next aspect of food sovereignty that I want to discuss is emergency food. It's what I want to keep the scope focused on for the purposes of this presentation. So in addition to making relationships with farmers and ranchers and all of that, to me, the next important priority would be working on growing, foraging, and saving food. There may be fruit trees where you live that are abandoned. We have some abandoned peach trees in our neighborhood, and we were able to harvest about 20 pounds of peaches off the ground from those trees. I made vinegar with the ones that were rotting, and I dehydrated and then sealed the rest in vacuum sealed bags. So again, I mentioned fire is our big concern. Canning is not a great option for me. So getting the dehydrator and the the vacuum sealer have been incredibly helpful. And that is also how I preserved all the food from my own garden this year. We didn't make any tomato sauce. We just dried all of our tomatoes. But there are tons of different fun ways to preserve food, including pickling, canning, fermenting, dehydrating, freezing, and then freeze drying will last the longest. That's a technology I have not gotten into yet. Purchasing emergency food in bulk is also great. And you can start by creating a 3-day food supply for everyone in your family and work up from there. We have about 3 months ready to go at our house. If you're short on time, there are companies that you can go online and search 1 month food supply, and they will send you like a big bin with 1 month of, I think it's usually freeze-dried meals for your whole family. There are organic options too. I absolutely love AzorStandard.com, and I have to plug them. It's a family farm up in Oregon, and you can order pretty much everything from them. They grow a lot of their own food, and then they have all vetted small family farmers that they buy from. So we've bought all of our 25-pound bags of grains and beans and all of that from them, as well as large bags of coconut shreds and stuff like that. I have a lot of dietary restrictions and can't live on beans and rice. So I've had to think about, different ways to get my nutritional intake if there's an emergency and I can't get to the grocery store. Azor Standard delivers monthly. I know they have drops all throughout Solano County and all throughout the country. There's no extra charge to purchase. You just have to go pick up your food from the truck, which is always a fun community effort once a month. And this is another great thing to work with your network, with your pod, to check items off the list. And again, work on individual talents. Maybe the really strong person can go pick up all the 25-pound bags of food. Maybe someone else can divide the food into smaller portions. Maybe someone's really organized and can create an Excel spreadsheet, etc. Okay, let's all actually just take a little pause, take a deep breath, and take a little stretch if you'd like. You can close your eyes and just tune into your body. We've run through a lot of information in a short amount of time. So just taking a deep breath and trusting that that information is being absorbed, whatever is needed to be absorbed. And take one more nice deep breath. And we'll continue. So medicine sovereignty is another really exciting thing to me, something that I like to think about. And having access to hospitals and prescription medication refills is something we take for granted. There's a great book here that I want to recommend called Where There Is No Doctor. It's a great book just to read for fun. You'll learn a lot about, what constitutes a medical emergency, what things like shock look like, et cetera, et cetera. And they have a great spreadsheet in the back for how to create an emergency medical kit. So other tips here for emergency medicine is to try to get a backup supply of prescription medications if that's something that you need, and that can be kept in your go bag. Keep basic first aid kits in several places. Car, home, and go bag is what I do. And you may wish to purchase extra first aid supplies such as supplements, natural medicines, etc. for your go bag. This is a spread I created for the zine, which was based off of my own project. I mentioned I'm an herbalist, and my first couple evacuations, I was throwing, giant half-gallon and quart-sized mason jars full of unstrained tinctures and oils into grocery bags and lugging them around with me, and it was not ideal. So I spent about 6 months conceptualizing and creating this and getting all my medicines organized. And it's just, I'm so happy that I have this now. I just bought a medical bag off the internet, and all of my large bottles of medicines go in the bottom. I have a giant bottle of iodine in there for sterilization and for water purification. And then I purchased a pill bottle holder, and that is great for my 1 and 2 ounce tincture bottles. And then I have Ziploc bags with all of my oils and anything that has honey in it. I dried herbs that I grew in my garden and vacuum sealed them to make them pack tight. And I packed all the pockets with those. And then I have flower essences, essential oils, homeopathics in the other pockets. So this was just, what worked for me. And my goal was just basic support for myself and my family. So I focused on basic first aid, digestive and respiratory health, nervous system regulation, which is really important in emergencies, and then general trauma support. And then I made a note of some of the things that I included in there. If you're wanting to create your own medicine bag, something as simple as lavender essential oil, activated charcoal, a wound healing salve, and then all of your basic bandages will go a long way. Moving forward to communications. And this is something that's been an ongoing topic of discussion in our local groups, and it's something that we're still really working on nailing down. But some ideas that we've come up with so far are trading out-of-state contacts with a buddy. We did that in our neighborhood group so that you can call their family out of state and vice versa if need be. I also want to mention that in our recent fire, I live right by a peak that has the communications towers and the repeater for the emergency communications, and it almost all burned down. There was a really valiant firefight at the top of that peak, and they saved them. But if that had gone down, emergency personnel would not have been able to communicate, and cell towers would have gone down too. So it's a very realistic possibility. We have a centrally located within the county community board that people can physically go to and leave notes on, kind of like Center Camp at Burning Man. Walkie-talkies is great for like a neighborhood group. They only work short range. And then another option is to become amateur radio certified, ham radio, or we all probably know somebody who is a ham radio enthusiast or know somebody who knows somebody. You can learn more about amateur radio at arrl.org. And if you know, 1 or 2 people who have a ham radio and have an antenna, then those places also make great base camps, places to gather so that you can be in the communication hub. Another thing is communicating over secure messaging apps such as Signal and Telegram. This is something that we do, and the Signal app actually was down for a whole day last week, and so we scrambled to create a backup Telegram group. So we learn all these things through experience, but having multiple ways to communicate is a great way to cover bases. And lastly, having a physical meeting place that's agreed upon and knowing what events would trigger meeting. Just a brief note on economics. ATMs often become unavailable, inaccessible in economic crashes. I know that happened in Argentina. So keeping cash in your go bag is great. And then just in case cash becomes useless, such as in the Great Depression, somebody's grandmother that I know who escaped Berlin in the 40s recently recommended having coffee, cigarettes, sugar, and alcohol for barter, and making it an alcohol that can double as an antiseptic, such as vodka. Also, diversifying assets if you have assets. Investing in physical land, even with a group of people, is great. Investing in decentralized digital currency is something that some folks are doing, and also in physical metals. You can also purchase junk coin, which is when they made coins out of real silver, they're melted down and you can use those for barter. So just some ideas to start to think about that aspect of things as well. And most importantly, know when to unplug. This is probably more important than everything else I've said this evening. It's really great to be empowered with information, and I've noticed for myself that that can also become an excuse. Adrenaline rushes can be addictive because we don't want to crash. They release endorphins, and so running on that, anxiety can become addicting, and the excuse of I need to know what's going on is definitely something to be aware of. So along with unplugging is practicing self-care. And of course, I say practicing because for myself personally, it's something that I've had to work really, really hard on to get my brain to stop, when its wheels are spinning and the gears are spinning. And there's always events happening these days that can trigger that. And so knowing when to just say no and walk away, turn the cell phone off, and go lie down in a wonderful yoga pose like the one that Anna is showing here. And she created an affirmation for this pose. I am safe. I am supported. I honor my thoughts and feelings. So now I'd like to actually take a minute to brainstorm 3 self-care techniques. And I'd like to share the ones that I'm doing currently. They're going to be very different from person to person and even day to day, week to week, season to season. So right now, what's really helping me is walking every day, even if I only go to the corner and back. Starting off the day with a glass of warm lemon water has numerous digestive benefits, and I crave that in the mornings now. I really love it. And then turning off my phone at least 30 minutes before bed. And I particularly do this when I notice that I'm getting into that information overload, anxiety spin out. So those are my 3 for inspiration. And let's take 5 minutes, and you can take your pen and paper and either jot down some things that you are doing that are working for you, or maybe think of a few new things. Mhm. So you can go ahead and finish up if you're still thinking. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? I don't see anybody trying to come off of mute.
You can enter it into the chat too, Beth.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
Yeah, or I think they could raise their hands if they wanted to talk about some of their self-care.
Okay. Yeah, so go ahead and enter a tip into the chat if you'd like, or raise your hand if you'd like to speak it. And this list, you can pop it on your refrigerator or somewhere where you'll see it regularly. It's nice to have those reminders. And it's really all about what's empowering to you in this moment. And sometimes that's something that I just need to get quiet and ask myself what I need most in the moment. Sometimes being tuned in is empowering, and sometimes tuning out is empowering. And having permission for both is great. Another reminder that creativity is a radical act. We have chosen to channel our creativity, our thoughts, fears, desires, observations of beauty, conversations with people who inspire us into the zine format. But coloring, drawing, running, dancing, playing, cooking, really anything can be creatively done. Just remembering to feed that. It becomes more radical the more difficult it is, the more our society wants us to stay in fear. Just some final notes on where to find us before we go into questions. And we're on Patreon. That's where our subscription service is, although we will be pausing it for the next 2 months because we're both in the middle of a move. But you can still sign up and then your membership will be placed on hold. Declaration Sovereign is also a community. We have monthly Zoom gatherings called co-inspiration circles where we each talk about what our challenges are and what's inspiring us. And that's been a really great way for us to connect and, just ground and find that place of of gratitude and sharing. So if you join, you can join for as little as $3 a month, and all patrons get access to that. We are on Instagram, although we have been less active lately because of censorship and the difficulty of getting our posts shown. So we are trying out Telegram now, which is the bottom link, t.me/declarationsovereign. And if you have any questions about tonight's presentation or would like to purchase back issues, you can email me at declarationsovereign@protonmail.com. And I would like to leave you with a poem called Evolve Through Crisis. At first, my body froze. My breath got shallow. Things in deep places curled in and tightened to self-protect. This lasted for minutes, days, years. I've been through this before. I know what happens. It's not good, I said. And then in bed one night, when I could no longer hold the pain of holding, a voice of wisdom, even deeper than the pain, before, beyond, and through it, spoke. It's okay. I understand all the whys, and I will make a choice. Within the bigness of this moment, I will take a stand for peace, for trust. I have seen all other roads, and I will choose the road to peace through trust. Not trust of those who claim to have power, no. Not trust of those who claim to have authority, no. Not trust of those who tell me to turn in my brothers and sisters. I will never trade my sight or love for safety. And I see that God has opened the doors of transcendence. So I trust in the medicine, the way she moves through me and all things. I trust in the way the earth knows. I reach my hands and feet into her to inoculate myself with her knowing. Instead of cowering beneath the sputtering, gasping tower, I set myself to the good work of remembering. Through my hands and my strong back and my vast and tender heart, the directive of my humanity, to sing and sweat and be together, encouraged by the sheer stubbornness of our community in the face of every obstacle that confronts us. It is nature's way to evolve through crisis, for we are the spark of God. So I thank you very much for attending tonight, and if there are any questions, we can take those now. So I guess you can raise your hand or enter your question into the chat.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Beth. That was just stunning. It was so beautiful. So just all in my mind, I was taking all kinds of notes and so excited to just envision like what those next steps can be. Like, how do we get creative with all of this that, that we're constantly up against and get stronger because of it. So I'm going to ask everybody, Allison created it today. It's our short community wisdom survey. And we just really that's going to help us guide kind of the future topics. So if you could please fill out that survey for us, that would be great, because it'll help us to see what kind of support you need to take the next steps for this. Also, Beth, you mentioned, I forget what you said about it, but it's the food is free stands. So we have one of our food force keepers started the food is free stands, and I don't think it's global, but there's 6 stands all over Solano County now that people can bring their excess produce. So that's really great that people can share it. And yes, let's get to some questions. I'm actually, Allison, if you can hear me, I can't see my video anymore. I did something. Can you hear me, Beth?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
we can hear you.
See, I'm sorry, I clicked something and my video went away. I need IT support, help.
Yeah, we can still see you, so even if you can't see yourself, you can go ahead and manage the questions.
Yeah, so I can't see the questions either. So if anyone has questions, yeah, just everything went away. and I don't know why.
I would love to share people's self-care tips. So somebody said reading for 30 to 60 minutes a night. That's such a good one. I always fall asleep in the first 5 minutes. Quick 5 to 10 minutes of stretches is a good self-care tip. Start each morning to reflect upon what I'm grateful for. Take my dogs on daily walks. Excellent. And then Kat said, I feel like I've got a lot of my bases covered, but also now have an idea of where I can bridge some gaps and be better prepared. Great.
Yeah, if anyone wants to type questions into the chat, I'm happy to read those off and until Nicole has her chat accessible again. Now is your opportunity. And I do not see any questions coming into the chat, so turn it back over to you guys.
Yay, I can see now. Anyway, I'm not great with computers. So are there any other questions in the chat? I don't think so. And I think it's just still like, I'd love to do this more like with Solano County. I don't see anybody, but if anyone wants to raise their hand or type a question in the chat, but I'd love to do something like this in Solano County, you know, start getting pods. And how does that start, right? So like, what's the first step you'd recommend somebody wanting to do this? They don't actually have to be in Solano County, it could be anywhere. You know, is there like a first kind of like, okay, the first easy step?
Well, it takes that one person who has the inspiration to think of several other people who might be committed to similar issues, you know, or be interested in tackling some of these projects, you know, so just to think about even like one other person, and then you can get started and brainstorm 3 more people.
So your pod's just within your county, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's within your county, right? So yeah, because that's where it's wanting to start this, but how to, like, where's the first step? So that is just connecting with one other person and kind of just starting small, because sometimes it seems so overwhelming, right? So like, it's like, I'm not prepared, you know, and how to start with just a manageable step.
Here's someone in Solano County.
Yeah, so yeah, Nadine, please, like, yeah, reach out to us. There's a lot of links that have been put in the chat, so please reach out to us, because we can use all the help we can get, because this is not really in any of our programs, right? This was something we really wanted to bring this to our community, because there's a need for it, and how valuable is knowing your farmers. Like I have 10 chickens. Know somebody that has chickens. You got a source of eggs, you know, like my mom always wants to get presents for me. I'm like, no, I'm like a Berkey water filter. So now, you know, and so how to, you know, get these, I like how you said, like, making almost like a spreadsheet or something of what people have access to, you know, and then being able to know, okay, Nicole has a Berkey water filter that we can pour anything in. So yeah. So there is a question here. What is the purpose of reaching out to folks in other states and exchanging phone numbers?
Yes, so in case of something like an earthquake, sometimes you can't get through to a local phone number, but you can get through to an out-of-state phone number. And so it's just kind of like an extra layer. So if you do it with someone who is like lives on your street, and say their cell phone isn't working, or say they were injured or something, you know, then you can call their family and say, look, they're okay, this is what's going on, we've had an earthquake, etc.
Right, like an emergency kind of contact where you can let them know, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think even just through the process of doing that, you build so many relationships, but it takes getting out of your comfort zone, I would imagine. to do this, because, you know, it all sounds fine and good, and then you're like actually passing flyers out to your neighbors, right? And you're like, hi. Like,
yeah, it's interesting how, you know, the crisis is the driver for this stuff in a lot of cases. I wouldn't have these relationships with my neighbors if we hadn't been through some stuff together. You know, I don't know if I would have been able to walk around and put flyers in mailboxes if we didn't have that common cause. And so, you know, it's maybe a little bit more difficult to do it preemptively, to do it in a preparational way. And that's kind of why I named the class Evolve Through Crisis, because these things are evolutionary catalysts if we use them as such. But I think that that can be a great way to spark conversation too, is just, hey, you know, I know things have been, a lot of crazy stuff is going on all the time. We're just interested in getting more prepared for any disaster that might come our way. And even if you can get one other person in your neighborhood who's on board with you, you can get a certified emergency response team member to do a presentation, and then just invite your neighbors to that. It's a perfect icebreaker, whoever wants to come, and that starts the conversation.
yeah, because that's someone put in the chat that that how open would people, our neighbors, would be to this? And you don't really know until you ask, right? And it's awkward, you know, it's really, because I do community stuff, I'm forcing myself to do it within my own neighborhood. It's a little awkward. You got to get past, you know, some discomfort, I think.
Yeah, it's true. And so maybe there's people in your neighborhood that you already have relationships with, and you can start there. And then maybe they know some different people that you don't know. Maybe your neighborhood isn't the right neighborhood to just do flyers. It really depends, but just starting with who you know and building from there, it's great things will happen.
Yes, and there's a comment that you must be sad to be moving after making so many contacts.
Yes, I'm really sad. Interestingly enough, a lot of the members of my community were moving to a similar area. So we'll be starting this there too. And then there will be people sort of coming in and taking over what we've started here. So I have faith that, you know, everything will keep growing in a good way, and we'll all keep meeting new people to join together with.
Yeah, I have Kat says that she doesn't live in the best neighborhood, but thankfully she has a strong social circle. I can help get them prepared in case of emergency, so we can work together to keep each other going.
Yeah.
And then just continually getting creative. That's why it's like we have this platform, you know. And I think the first inspiration was bringing you to do this incredible presentation for us, and then it's like, where does it go from here, right? Because we do have a platform, we do have a network, we can post things on our, you know, on our website and our newsletter, and so, you know, how to kind of keep this going. So yeah, really appreciate you being here and doing this.
Yeah, and there may be people in the county who have experience with, you know, emergency medical care or some of the things that we've talked about tonight that can come and do talks too, you know.
Right, starting with the CERT, that's a good idea, right?
Yeah.
Like how, and maybe even, I guess, would they do it in, I mean, now it's like everything's up in the air, but I'm wondering if there was a few people within Solano County that we could all go to one place and they do it there, or maybe they might even be doing it via Zoom. Or
yeah, that's a good question.
Some platform.
Yeah, call and
that,
find
yeah. Yeah, that might be the first step for us, is to start looking there, because it's getting prepared that way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I see anything else in the chat, so if there's no further questions, we can, you know, end this early, unless there's something that you had that you wanted to speak to.
I don't think so. I think I shared everything, but again, my email is no, that's my other one. You can use declarationsovereign@protonmail.com if any questions come up after the presentation.
Excellent. Yeah, and all the resources that you sent me in the email, I'll email to everybody. that within a few days. So everyone will have the resources from this. So you can start your community pod and get creative with it and keep us updated on what happens, and you know, reach out to us, because we're, you know, again, everything, a lot of what we do is a pilot. You know, we're just trying different things here, you know, and seeing.
Trial and error.
And get creative, you know, because it's hold on, I think there is some advice on transporting critical papers in a go bag.
I have all of my papers in those plastic file folders. So you like flip the top up and then there's a bunch of, it's like an accordion folder type of thing. So I just have like 5 of those all stacked up in a duffel bag. I'm not the most organized person in the world. I'm sure other people might come up with better systems, but that works for us. It keeps them all in one place.
That's a great, that's a great suggestion. Those accordion, because then you can file it, and then if you need them, then you can get them out and put them back in, and you have it all ready. Yeah. So it got you organized, huh?
It got me more organized, yeah.
Yes, got you more organized. That's wonderful. So thank you so much for getting all the thank yous, for the great information, for making ourselves available tonight and sharing your wisdom. Yes, you know, everybody for being here and taking time out, because it is valuable. I know people are getting tired of all the screen stuff, so I really appreciate everybody being here. Beth for presenting, and Allison doing all the behind the scenes stuff, and we'll look forward to taking the things that we learned tonight and doing something with it. So thank you so much. Appreciate it, Beth.
Thank you so much.
And safe travels, and safe travels. Take good care.